actually, I only have one slide. People think that I'm going to give a big PowerPoint presentation, and that's not the case. That's actually the next slide. I love this picture because what it does is it reminds me of one of my favorite acronyms. And all of us, whether you're in the military or in private sector, in the service community, we have acronyms. But one of my favorite is called BHAG, which is the Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. And that's why we're here today. The notion of service is not a new idea. It is already integrated into our culture, whether it's in an institutional environment like the military or whether it's grassroots efforts in communities. But it's not ubiquitous. And last night, Wendy Kopp did a great job of reminding us of where we've come in the service movement, right? Over the last 25 years, Alan and Bridge and Ann Mora and Shirley and Wendy and a whole bunch of people in this room have really dedicated parts of your lives to really move the agenda forward around this modern day service movement that we're talking about. But now it's time to really take it to the next level. How do we scale it? How do we make it ubiquitous? And how do we achieve our goal of making this a year of service, a rite of passage? And so I don't mind sharing something with you now. I didn't ever tell Alan this, but about a little over a year ago, he called, and he wanted me to be engaged in the summit last year. And to be honest, I just did not want to go to another conference. But then I sat back and I remembered the first day that Alan and Michael Brown came to visit Cisco. And they were so happy and so proud, and they even showed me a little video. And it was a video of a much younger version of Michael and Alan when they were very idealistic and came up with this notion of designing something that turned their idealism into action. I still remember the words that you used, Alan. And what they did was they designed what today we know as City Year. And I thought, you know what, after all this time, if Alan Casey can still call me and be the cheerleader he was the first day I met him, through everything that he's been through, then I can keep an open mind. And I understand why he feels this way, because he moved from idealism to realism, and in that real world, as we all know, he's seen firsthand the direct impact that service can have, not just on the person who serves, but on those recipients of that service and the problems that they solve. And we've been tracking these metrics, and it does have impact. So I made a deal with Alan. I said, look, if we go, then it means we will probably get engaged. And if we get engaged, which history shows that we tend to get engaged big, then it had better be tied to something that's actionable around a big, hairy, audacious goal. So we went. And we did, and it is. So what we decided to do at that point is that we would support the exploration phase of what are the real barriers, okay, to moving this to the next level. And of course, we decided it was technology. Of course, I would say that. I come from the technology industry. But it's not just a technology in and of itself. It's what we can do with it in creating a national service marketplace. Because there is no lack of supply or demand. There's lots of people who want to serve. There's lots of service organizations who need them. There's lots of problems that need to be solved. But what we wanted to do is if we can create a marketplace that technology now enables us to do in a very universal way that would enable somebody who wants to serve to go and explore and learn, identify opportunities to serve, solve problems, and have a really wonderful experience. And then for those organizations who need these members, that they can go and certify and train and implement, measure results, and have a meaningful outcome. This shouldn't be a hard thing to do. So what we agreed to do was take a look at it. And I was actually quite moved by what my own team was able to do. We brought it back, and what started out as fulfilling a commitment turned into an individual passion. And there's all different people from the company who were engaged, but I remember probably one of the busiest people. He had a major launch coming up, new platform, lots of things happening. And he said to me, you know what, I'm really, really busy, but busy people know that you always find time for things that are important. And this is important. So what we decided was how do we then move this to the next level? It's not a question of capacity or ability. We can do this. It's a question of will. So in the spirit that we will never ask someone to do something we wouldn't do ourselves, I want to announce today that we're going to take the next step and make this next commitment to build out the fundamental platform of which this marketplace can grow. And, you know, and as Rob mentioned, there's lots of technology out there and applications that are useful. A lot of your organizations built some applications that can be leveraged. There's a lot out there, but we need to build that fundamental platform. And so we're actually going to make a $3 million commitment, but we're going to package this as a challenge grant, because this is not just about Cisco or any individual corporation. This is really about creating that platform that can set the stage for us to have a truly national service marketplace that can scale and grow. And as any of us in the technology sector knows, it changes and it evolves over time. So that's what we're going to do. So I encourage all of you to tell your family, tell your friends, and their neighbors and their friends. You know where I'm going with this, right? So let's do this. I want to just leave you with just a few thoughts here. When I think about democracy, one of the most valued and precious benefits is participation. Right? It's a right, it's a privilege. Nobody has to ask you to get engaged. You have the right to participate. And we have people who want to participate from both the supply side and the demand side. And I want to share with you something that moved me a lot when I was at the World Economic Forum a few months ago. There was a young woman there, and she's a millennial, and they have this millennial cohort at the forum. And she said something that I think was so powerful. She said, you know what? We have a motto, which is don't design the future for us without us, all right? They're ready, they're willing, they understand what the problems are. They're not naive. Many of them are living those problems, but they also have solutions. They want to architect those solutions, and they want to take advantage and ownership of the future. So I would really love at this point to encourage all of you to help us build this and build this out so that we can make this happen. Thank you. Okay. So now, one of the things that we all like to do is to show some deliverables. When you work on a major project, you want to show some deliverables. So we actually worked very closely with a couple institutions. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't about an individual company. It's really about how do we move Franklin and NCOC and this whole service movement forward. So we wanted to find an independent organization that would take ownership and have responsibility for building out this marketplace. And so the National Center on Citizenship was, National Conference on Citizenship was actually selected for a couple of reasons. One is that it actually is a mandate of Congress, and it's focused on civic engagement. And now what I'd like to do is introduce Alir Zurka, who is the executive director. Many of you know him. He's known as a major advocate for human rights and civic engagement. He also authored a book on strategies for advocacy, and he teaches at Georgetown. But for our purposes, he is the person, what we call the go-to person, the throat to choke with, around this particular piece of it. So at this point, I'd like to call him up, and he's going to give you a demo of what our deliverables were over the last year. Thank you.